So I wanted to talk for a few minutes before we meditate about, perhaps perhaps a very slight shift to the way that, perhaps I more commonly talk about doing the practice. And you may be doing this anyway, or you may be including it, but it is just a slightly different emphasis. And I was thinking that usually in the practice, there's perhaps a little bit more of a sort of temporal emphasis rather than spatial. Yeah, there is both, but I'll say what I mean by that. So um, we're encouraged to be with the object and the knowing, with awareness. And it can feel a little bit linear, like you're knowing one thing after another. There's one thing arising, then there's another thing. And if you keep going, often that will open out to a more spacious, panoramic, or global awareness. And what we're doing with that, when it can feel quite linear, we're recognizing objects through the lens of different senses, and perhaps also distinguishing those senses. So there's hearing happening, or there's the seeing if the eyes are open, or thinking. So all those things are being known in a sense, just one after the other, though it may feel quite sort of smooth and quick when awareness is working well. So yeah, another way with just a slight emphasis encourages this more spatial way of looking, and that can bring perhaps that panoramic awareness in a little bit more quickly, a little bit more smoothly. So in this way, we don't distinguish quite so much between the different senses. It's just senses arising. And the focus is a little bit more on that everything is arising, everything is being known within the mind, known in awareness. So there's a really relaxation of that distinguishing mind, the mind that's one way of looking at it. It's clearly knowing in a little bit more detail. This is just clearly knowing that all that's being known is appearing in awareness in the moment. So on my retreat last week, I was practicing quite a lot like this, and it did bring a lot of ease, as well as clarity and openness to the mind at times. It felt like it accessed slightly different corners of the mind. Can't really talk in that way, but there's the experience. It's different ways of looking will affect what's seen, what's known, and it felt like it did that. And I think it's helpful regardless of what's happening in the mind. So you might have a particular experience that the mind keeps returning to, like a sore foot or something. It just keeps coming back to. And you can still just know that as this just arising in the mind, just arising. This is something that's happening within the mind, this experience in its different parts. Or it might be that that things are changing quite quickly in the mind. There's that fleeting sense. And again, rather than necessarily looking to follow each happening, there's this as we normally do, but yeah, that settling back can really help there to notice and know the happenings, appearances in the mind. I think you can include as well just all the thoughts that you might have, the thoughts about practice. Somewhere in the background, there's a knowing as well that these are just thoughts happening in the mind, whether I'm deliberately thinking about something or whether the thoughts are just arising. If you decide perhaps you want to stabilize the mind, excuse me, use the the fingers touching, the thumbs touching, or the breath, or you decide you want to resource the mind in some way, there's all this too. It's just being known by the mind, all happenings, all arisings. If you like, that variation on that phrase is the right view perspective. That's what's happening in the mind in the moment. Everything that is happening is simply an arising in the mind in the moment. And obviously that will include all that's happening through different senses. But as I say, we're just relaxing that sort of distinguishing one thing from another mode, just to try it out. And relaxing more from seeing one object at a time, but just really allowing that process, opening more to the process of mind and the process of knowing. The mind is knowing, is being aware. Okay, that's all I'll say for this morning. So if you'd like to set yourselves up in a comfortable posture.